Ever wonder why a deadline can sometimes give you like superhuman focus, but other times it just makes you freeze up completely? Or how you can zone out scrolling through videos for an hour, but you can't stand 5 minutes of a boring task? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the science of your brain's reward system. We'll unpack why we get bored, how we find that flow state, and, this is the big one, how modern tech is literally designed to tap right into our deepest, most ancient wiring.
Okay, so let's start with a feeling we all know really well. That constant search for the perfect level of mental engagement. Not too boring, not too stressful, but just right. I mean, think about it. A little bit of pressure, it can actually be great. It helps you zero in on what you need to do. But pile on way too much, and suddenly your brain just kind of shuts down. And hey, that's not some personal failing. It's a fundamental principle of how our brains are literally built to perform.
This really gets to the heart of it all. See, our mental state, it exists on a spectrum. On one end, you've got boredom. You're understimulated, you can't engage, nothing sticks. On the other end, you've got anxiety, where you're so overstimulated, you're totally overwhelmed. But the magic happens right smack in the middle, in that sweet spot of optimal arousal. That's the peak performance zone our brains are always chasing. And why do we chase it? You can thank evolution for that. Humans, it turns out, are natural neophiliacs. We just love new things. And from an evolutionary standpoint, this curiosity was a massive advantage, right? It pushed our ancestors to find new tools, discover new food sources, and adapt to new environments. Our brain rewards this novelty seeking with a big ol' hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical that basically says, yes, do that again. It's a primitive drive that is still incredibly powerful today. So, this idea of a sweet spot isn't just some vague concept. Nope, it's a really well-documented scientific model, and it's usually visualized as this classic, bell-shaped performance curve. And it all goes back to this foundational experiment from way back in 1908. Researchers were teaching mice a task using electrical shocks of different intensities, and what they found was fascinating. With really weak shocks, the mice learned pretty slowly. With extremely strong shocks, they also learned slowly because they were just too stressed out. But with moderate shocks, bam, performance peaked. They learned the fastest. This discovery gave us what a lot of people call the Yerkes-Dodson law. But here's a little fun fact for your next trivia night. While Yerkes-Dodson is the famous name, the person who really proposed this inverted U relationship for human performance was a guy named Donald Hebb. So the more accurate name for this whole principle is actually Hebb's curve. It's the same idea, just, giving credit where credit is due. So, the crucial point is this. It doesn't matter if you're a mouse in a lab or a person trying to crush a deadline. The principle is exactly the same. Your brain performs at its absolute best, not when it's totally relaxed, and definitely not when it's in a full-blown panic, but right in that Goldilocks zone of moderate stimulation.
And now we get to the really fun part. What's the engine driving us along this curve? Well, it's a powerful little neurotransmitter you've probably heard a lot about, dopamine.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It so brilliantly illustrates a key point. For some brains, like those with ADHD, this hunt for stimulation isn't just a tendency. It is the primary driver of their behavior. It's not about ignoring what's important. It's that their brains are fundamentally wired to prioritize what is deeply engaging and rewarding.
This is explained by a fascinating theory called reward deficiency syndrome. The basic idea is that brains with fewer dopamine receptors find ordinary, everyday stuff, well, less rewarding. Think of it like trying to charge your phone, but you have fewer outlets. It takes a much bigger jolt of electricity, a stronger, more immediate reward to get the same motivational effect. This is why mundane tasks just don't provide enough juice to get going.
Now, let's get a little more specific. It's not just about having less dopamine. The whole system is regulated differently. The baseline, day-to-day level of dopamine can be lower, which makes it super hard to start on those low-reward tasks. But, and this is key, when a highly stimulating activity comes along, like an amazing video game or a project you're passionate about, the brain responds with a massive, enhanced burst of dopamine. And that's what leads to that intense state of hyperfocus.
Okay, so we've established we have this ancient brain wiring that's always seeking out novelty and rewards. So what happens when that system, which once helped us find berries and avoid predators, gets plugged into our hyper-modern digital world?
Take a good look at this number, 24.4%. Any guesses what that represents? Just let it sink in for a second.
It's the percentage of adolescents who show signs of a genuine clinical addiction to social media. Let me say that again, nearly 1 in 4. That is so much more than just a bad habit. We're talking about compulsive use that's driven by a brain that has been successfully hijacked.
And here's a little breakdown of exactly how they do it. A notification pops up, that little buzz in your pocket or that ping is a cue. Instantly, your brain anticipates a potential reward. A like, a comment, a new message. That anticipation alone is enough to release dopamine, which then drives you to do the action. You check your phone. This completes the loop and it reinforces the behavior, making you way more likely to do it again and again.
And look, this isn't just some wild speculation. This is documented science. As this quote explains, the pings and pop-ups on our screens act as powerful reward predictive cues. They are quite literally engineered triggers designed for one purpose: to kickstart that dopamine-seeking cycle in your brain.
But here's what makes this system so unbelievably powerful. The rewards are totally unpredictable. You never know when you'll get a like or a comment or a share. This is called a variable reward schedule. And it is the exact same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines in Las Vegas so incredibly addictive. Your brain just keeps pulling that lever over and over, hoping for that next unpredictable dopamine payoff.
But, living in this constant state of digital stimulation, it's not without a cost. A pretty big one, actually. So let's look at the real-world consequences, and more importantly, what we can actually do to start reclaiming our own focus.
Yeah, the research paints a really sobering picture, especially for adolescents spending more than 3 hours a day on social media. We're not just talking about wasted time here. It's a measurable increase in the risk of anxiety and depression. It's lower overall life satisfaction. It's a constant erosion of self-esteem from comparing your life to everyone else's highlight reel. And it's a brain that's being subtly rewired for more impulsivity and a shorter attention span.
But the good news is we are not helpless in this. The research points to a bunch of really effective strategies. This could mean things like structured digital detoxes to kind of reset your brain's reward baseline, or therapies like CBT, which help you recognize and change those automatic impulses to check your phone. For younger folks, things like parental controls and much better digital literacy education in schools can build a stronger defense from the ground up. Heck, even AI is being used now to help moderate the most harmful content before it even gets to us.
So, we end with this question for you. We have this ancient operating system in our skulls that is hardwired to seek stimulation, and we live in a modern world filled with technology that is precision engineered to exploit that exact system, usually for profit. Knowing this, that power really does shift back to you. In a world that is actively, constantly fighting for every scrap of your attention, protecting your focus becomes one of the most important, most critical skills you can possibly build.